I thank the first panel for their testimony, reminding the members that Committee Rule 3D imposes a 5-minute limit on questions. The chair will now recognize members for any questions they may wish to ask the witnesses. I'll start by recognizing myself for 5 minutes. Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary Garriott, I truly appreciate your testimony and your written testimony that notes Secretary Holland's and the department's priority to improve public safety in Indian country. The testimony earlier today from the author of the bill that the Law Enforcement Parity Act addresses the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples crisis that we have seen. I have visited the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, which is located in New Mexico and in my expanded district, and I know and agree that these issues of they're highly trained when they're going through that federal law enforcement, but we need to make sure that we are able to retain them. I wanted to ask you to expand on the department's work in this area and how the Parity for Tribal Law Enforcement Act would support the efforts that you have ongoing. And I'll also want to ask you a couple of questions on the other bills, so just to give you a heads up on timing.
Yes. And thank you for the question. And training and improvement of our law enforcement officers is something that the department is continually committed to, and on a very personal note, builds on previous work that I had the opportunity to work on the last time I served in the administration. And one of the things I think is incredibly important about this bill is that it recognizes the incredible sacrifice that law enforcement officers place and put themselves and on a daily basis, and expanding benefits, federal employee benefits to them would aid greatly in tribes' ability to recruit and retain officers. We've seen this many times throughout Indian country. It's not an issue that's limited to just one state, but really all of Indian country. And on a very personal level, I've also seen the incredible commitment that law enforcement officers have made and the challenges that they face in dealing with multiple jurisdictions. And being able to not have to go through the SLEC process and to automatically, under certain provisions, be able to enforce federal law would be an incredible step forward.
Thank you. And providing the additional resources to our law enforcement officers, I think, is something that we can all agree on. I want to switch gears and note that just earlier today in this room, the other hearing room, I was at the National Parks, Forests, and Public Lands Subcommittee hearing where we heard from the Department of Interior and tribal leaders about the importance of protecting cultural resources on federal lands. And an important piece of that testimony was that when they were talking about tribes' ties to lands, waters, and the cultural resources located there, it's not just talking about a past, it's talking about a present, that there has been a continuous connection to the sacred nature of these areas. And so we need to remember that that connection has remained unbroken. Could you please expand on how the administration is working to support those and how you see the multiple bills that really we're hearing today that touch that? Do you think that this furthers that goal of maintaining those cultural ties to the sacred places?
Absolutely. The administration has been very committed to working with tribes to expand and build upon tribal stewardship of not only their lands, but federal properties as well. And utilizing indigenous knowledge and the experience that tribes have been utilizing since time immemorial for thousands of years is a net benefit not only for the tribes, but for everybody. And while there may be opportunities to, under various agreements, to provide access or to better steward lands, these bills, the ones that are the land bills that we're talking about today, allow and put the ownership into the tribe's hands.
Thank you. And let me just, I wanted to make sure I just asked one quick question on H 8380, the Prairie Band Potawatomi Chabanais Band Reservation Settlement Act. Right now, as written, it is reflecting placing land in restricted fee status. I know there's been conversation about amending that so it would mandate that the Secretary of Interior take the land into trust status. Would you support that? And
changing it from restricted fee to trust would not change our general support.
thank you. I've used up an extra 24 seconds of my time. I apologize to the committee for that, and I shall yield to the ranking member Obernolte.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Garriott, for your testimony. My first question pertains to the bills that you provided testimony on, H.R. 6032 and the discussion draft ANS to H.R. 7581. Those are bills that would place U.S. Forest Service land into trust for the benefits of the Karuk and Yurok tribes. Since we're taking land from the Forest Service and purporting to put it into trust, you've testified that the Biden administration is in support of this action. What are the thoughts of the U.S. Forest Service on this action?
As everyone knows, our testimony goes through a rigorous clearance process, and so overall the administration is supportive.
So you would say the Forest Service is supportive?
It is my understanding going through the clearance process, yes.
All right, thank you. And then talking about the bill that the chair was just referencing, H.R. 8380, probably one of the more complicated of the bills that we're considering today. There has been speculation about the purpose for which the tribe might use the lands that they acquire through this claims process. And just to be clear, my feeling is if they're entitled to the land, they should get the land regardless of what the use of the land would be for. But I just wanted to clear the air about the status of a couple of things. If the land was put into restricted free status, would it be eligible for the tribe to conduct gaming on that land?
Yes, under the Indian Gaming Regulatory Act, lands that would be acquired through a settlement claims process such as this would be eligible.
Okay, regardless of if it's in restricted fee status or if it's in trust?
If it's in restricted fee, yes.
Okay. And another part of the bill would authorize money to be paid to the tribe in settlement, partial settlement of the claim. If the tribe were to use that money to purchase land, would the land purchased meet the land claim exception under the Inland Gaming Regulatory Act?
That is my understanding, yes.
It would? All right. That concludes my questions. Thank you very much. I'll yield back, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ranking Member. The chair will now recognize Representative Chuy Garcia from the state of Illinois.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To Mr. Garriott, H.R. 8380 would recognize the land purchased by the tribe in restricted fee status. Would you support the amended language that would mandate that the Secretary of Interior take the land into trust status, and which is more common?
Amending the bill to change the requirements from restricted fee to fee would not change our general support for the goals of the legislation.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And with regard to your second question, I'd have to get back to you in terms of kind of acreage and what the specifics are in terms of what is more common.
Okay, thank you. I would await that. H.R. 8380 proposes a 9-year process to address the final compensation. Can you describe the process that you envision?
Well, I think that a lot of the details would, continue to have to be worked out between the department and the tribe. But as a general note, in terms of the process and the amount, we would have to undertake a study to do an assessment of what the value is and determine an appropriate kind of timeline and timeframe for that.
Okay. And then finally, the department determined 30 years ago that the Prairie Band was the sole successor in interest to the Chabanais land. Are you aware of any other tribes that have recently come forward to claim Chabanais reservation other than the Prairie Band?
With regard to we're not aware of any recent tribes that have come forward, although we do understand that there may be 2 other tribes that would be successors in interest.
Okay. Does that mean that you affirm support of the department's opinion of 20 years ago?
With regard to that opinion, we have not had an opportunity to review it recently, and we would have to get back to you and the committee after consider to take a look at that.
Okay, thank you. That'd be much appreciated. Madam Chair, I yield back.
Thank you very much, Representative Garcia. Before we conclude with the witness panel, are there any members who have not had their 5 minutes and would seek recognition? Then I thank the witness for his valuable testimony and the members for the questions today. We will now move on to the next panel, our 3rd panel of witnesses for today. Before introducing them, I will remind non-administration witnesses that they are encouraged to participate in the non-administration witnesses in the diversity survey created by the Congressional Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Witnesses may refer to their hearing invitation materials for further information. Under our committee rules, the oral statements are limited to 5 minutes, but you may submit longer statement for the record if you choose. When you begin, the on-screen timer will begin counting down. It will turn orange when you have 1 minute remaining. I recommend that members and witnesses joining remotely lock the timer on their screen. When you go over the allotted timer, I'll kindly ask you to wrap up your statement. After your testimony is complete, please remember to mute yourself to avoid any inadvertent background noise. I will allow the entire panel to testify before we begin the question portion of the hearing. The chair now recognizes the Honorable Wassel Atterbury, who is chairman of the Karuk Tribe. Chairman.